would like to say that you should all be smart, but don't know how to cope be smarter. We don't know anything about how to improve intelligence, and as well, we don't really know anything about how to improve industriousness. And I can tell you that people who are industrious come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's ahead of them. If you want to know something about yourself, sit on your bed, one answer to yourself, you got to mean this, do got to be this right, this is no game, this. What's one thing I'm doing wrong? That I know I'm doing wrong. That a good fish. That a good fish. You meditate on that, you get an answer, and it won't be one you want, but it will be a necessary one. In this video, we will learn some of his best kept secrets for maximizing focus and achieving long-term success, so that you can study smarter, not harder. And I often tell people to fix everything you repeat every day, because people tend to think of those as trivial, right? You get up, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, you have your routine that you go through every day, where those roughly constitute 50% of your life. And people think where they're Monday and don't need to pay attention to them, and that's like, no, that's exactly wrong. The thing you do every day, those are the most important things you do. Hands down, all you have to do is duty, arithmetic. We make an average of 35,000 decisions every single day. Making eventually leads to decision fatigue, a state of mental overload that can impede a person's ability to continue making decisions. As psychiatrist Dr. Lisa McLean explained that the more decisions you have to make, the more fatigued and you develop and the more discouraged can become. This mental exhaustion can lead to poor choices, procrastination, and even to tendency to avoid decisions altogether. One important way to reduce decision fatigue is by simplifying daily routines, so that planning meals in advance, maintaining a consistent wardrobe, or establishing structural habits. Additionally, breaking down complex choices into smaller, manageable steps can make decision-making feel less overwhelming, helping individuals conserve mental energy for more important tasks. I can tell you that people who are ambitious come up with a strategy for solving the problem that's ahead of them, and then they do whatever they can do to stick to the strategy. And so, for example, if you sat down today or tomorrow for a couple hours, 3 hours, and you do fill in a Google Calendar, whatever you happen to use with a strategy for studying, and a list of when all your assignment are due and all of that. And when you go to sit down and study, then you won't be in a position where you have to cram for 10 hours a day, hopelessly, right before. On important exam, this is a very effective way of studying, by the way. I mean, first of people who cram for 10 hours say they're studying for 10 hours, but they really are, because I can study for 10 hours. I don't have the power for concentration that would enable me to do that for the long period of time. I can measure about 3 hours of intense intellectual activity before I'm ready. Then, a study in functions in human neuroscience found that basic learning, where decisions are spread out over time, can be tried as effective mathematical learning. This approach enhances memory retention and recall by encoding information into long-term memory. Research consistently shows that students who spend out their studying perform better on assessment taken weeks later compared to those who cram. In addition to sped learning, enough sleep plays a crucial role in learning and memory. According to the Sleep Foundation, sleep deprivation hinders the brain ability to create new pathways for recently learned information, making it harder to retain knowledge. And it also the case that if you study in the sleep, study in the sleep, and the study in the sleep, and you sleep better, and you much more likely to remember. And there's so much more likely to that you're much more likely to remember if you try to recall the material. And so highlighting in a sort of thing isn't very useful, but reading, closing the book, summarizing what you have read without burning the damn book, that's useful. And the reason for that is that you're practicing remembering. And that's what you have to practice. If you're practicing memorization, you have to practice memory. You don't just go over the thing over and over. That's what help you with recognition memory, but someone help you, help you with recall memory. The best thing you can do is read and watch every day. Couple hours every day, write about things you find important, and see if you can discover what you believe to be true. And when that will you build foundation, and it's unbelievably practical. Research published by Jackson V. Westall of Brigham Young University explore how reading literary fiction enhances our personal ability to understand others, a skill known as the theory of mind. This refers to the human capacity to recognize that others have your belief and desire different from their own. In the study, participants were divided into groups and assigned different reading materials. Afterward, they took a test measuring the ability to receive other emotion. The results show those who read literary fiction scored significantly higher than those who did not read at all. So what seemed to happen in the story is that they distill. So they watch people watch people, and then they tell story about what they see, but they leave a lot of the story, everything that's boring, hopefully. And then more story about exciting things and get sort of integrated, and then maybe a great writer come along and write something really interesting. Bro, for character transformations, and then you say, well, that's fiction, and then you will say, well, that's not true because it's fiction, but then maybe they're not right. Maybe it's more than true because one the truth is more than reality, and you had already got that material. What you want to is a distillation. Um, Interesting inference, and you might think, well, what is interesting? Well, the answer is you don't know. That's the thing. That's cool. What you about behavior? You say you think about voluntary behavior, but motivational stay will distant habit are activated depending on the situation. Autonomic response. So, for example, when you when you rule food deprived, and you start to think about food and start to organize your behavior towards food as an end to perceive the role that where your body also prepare for food, and so it's new food you think about motivated style as macro personality. According to an article commissioned today, titled "The Scientific Truth Behind Fake It Till You Make It," mental imagery and actual perception say common neural circuits, so they have different firing dynamics. This phenomenon is explained by his law, which states that neurons that fire together wire together. In other words, if you do something in association with something else, the two things will get interlined at a neural level. This principle highlights the brain ability to strengthen neural connection through repetition and association. For example, as one repeatedly visualizes themselves speaking confidently in public, their brain starts to reinforce the same neural pathways used in actual public speaking, potentially improving their real-life performance. Even when you're just walking to where you want to go, if you are successfully walking there, your brain track what you're doing, the circuits are activated while you're doing it, and if you what you are doing result in the result you desire, then the dopamine flows those little neurons that are active and make them grow and flourish. And so as you practice something that's working, the circuit that is activated as you're practicing is burned in dopamine, and that makes it stronger, and that feels good. It's growth. It's part of positive emotion, and so the positive emotion move you forward, but also encourage you to develop a habit that's practice. And so one of the things I would really will say is don't make a habit of pursuing things that are good for you, because you build that into that you have to whatever. If you become addicted to something, you build a little man the inside that's grow is there's an after one goal, despite everything else, not a good outcome. In order to withstand suffering, let's say your life has to have some meaning. Okay, well, that's mean a benefit is mean that part of way you overcome suffering is by making the suffering into something meaningful. And I don't mean that metaphysically. I mean technically, you make a mistake, it costs you suffering. You learn something about if you don't make a mistake again. And I started on a project writing with 258 participants. Researchers found that those encouraged to embrace discomfort feel to set our achievement and motivate you included, especially into the daily life, compared to those who were simply instructed to focus on the task. Specific negative experience as a side worship is particularly motivating when positive experiences are delayed and discomfort is immediate. This is life is suffering and this is like why learn something cause you're wrong. Who cares? It make you suffer. You care. So if if you want your little scream in the world, action, passion, you don't get what you want. You especially if you choose you wash your tears and cry. And why that? Because you don't know what you don't know. Terrible some my story that you to learn required pain. Now I don't believe that exactly because people who are curious you know and to and be curious and to learn new things can be very exciting, and so it seems to be isn't that there's a rate of learning that's too fast, and that's not you. That make what make you cry. But if you get the right just open opportunity to use that, you can benefit from the possibility that give you the dopamine kick fundamentally. You can benefit from the possibility without being overwhelmed by the anxiety element of it. Can you can tell what's happened is one of the coolest thing as far as I'm concerned.